When you look at where the money flows have been going, China's view on the world is not one of wanting to conquer the world like some imperial empire. China's view on the world is to make sure it's got access to the world for its own benefit. But that's actually no different from the view of any
other country.
Like the US, for example, like Britain, the British Empire. We come out of Brexit with a view that says we have to establish our links with the rest of the world. Well, of course, we have to establish our links with the rest of the world. But the mindset we're approaching for is to say, so that we can benefit. Now, China's view is we want to establish our links with the rest of the world so that we can benefit. And if you're on the end of that conversation, you say, okay, well, how do we benefit? How does Africa benefit from Chinese investment? How does Africa benefit from US investment? These are the same question for the policymakers. Yet somehow, if you pivot it to say, because China and America both want to have power and influence in a part of the world, that somehow if China wants it, it's bad, but somehow if America wants it, it's good, that isn't taking into account what the country that's caught in the middle of that conversation might think. And so to the extent where you want to understand what China's doing and why, think about the Trump administration's approach to China and limitations of control over dialogue initially, the whole Chinese Communist Party mantra that's going on from that administration, and has a different spin on it and a different twist to it under the Biden administration. But nevertheless, China is a competitor in so many areas. And one of the big things, whether it's about 5G and technology or whether it's about military grade exports, one of the big things that America is concerned about is competition in cutting edge technology from China. That's what a competitor should be aware of. But to pretend that China is somehow cheating in this area or is somehow operating illegally isn't really representing anything other than that wish to do down your competitor. It doesn't really reflect the economic benefit to a third party, for example, doing business with China as opposed to a third party doing business with America. And we have to remember that the narrative that comes out of US policymaking regarding China may have a very different complexion on it from a political establishment in another part of the world. Australia's relationship to China is very different to America's, yet Australia is being pressured to adopt the same policy approach to China as America does because of its relations with America. People kind of getting stuck between China and America are finding it very difficult to have to go one way or another. And in reality, I think China's operations in the Pacific and America's operations in the Pacific will continue to have these tensions. But as investors, I'm not seeing this leading to an escalation of anything other than rhetoric at this stage. But that's definitely a geopolitical risk that investors will continue to have on the radar screen.
If you'd like to hear this interview in its entirety, then head on over to SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other major podcast platform and search Four Corners Podcast.